Hello, defined peoples of YouTube. I have to address a video from the Bruce. Yes, I do. Can't really do it. It's gonna be really ass backwards and fucking crazy because, well, it's Bruce. You know, but I have to play a little bit of his fucking nonsense, and I'm actually going to be talking at the end more. But let me let the Bruce do his thing, eh?
Yeah, you want to talk about screw loose speech? Well, yeah, you pretty much got a screw loose. You use a hypocritical argument like you just did.
The hypocritical argument of what?
Oh, yeah, you were appealing to your religious beliefs because you were talking.
Okay, fuck you, man. Because when it comes to the attitude of our way we think about prostitution right now, yes, it does. And it has a lot to do with what's happening, or what happened, excuse me. Woo! I got a screw loose. From our 19th century and early 20th century view of reform. And guess what? It does have a lot to do with religious thought.
You argue from a common moral standard. Well, yeah, but you know what? In order for her to argue about situations where they can possibly control it and do all these kinds of things to condition it so it would be safe in her perspective, you know what? She's going to have to rely on the freaking common morality and laws for these things to happen in order for that to work anyway. So you're both hypocrites on that point. Both of you.
Why? You didn't state why we were both hypocrites. First of all, Exiled and I have very differing opinions about prostitution and how it should be legal and how it should be regulated. We have differences of opinion there, homeboy. You didn't even bother to look at that. Hell, Exiled and I have been arguing about this all the time. She was arguing that selling your sexual services is some kind of right. And I said, fuck you. No, it's not. And we fucking had a serious fight about that. But you didn't even bother checking on that, did you? You just jerked off and said, oh, you and Exiled, You didn't even bother checking into the details, did you, champ?
She would have to rely on laws to protect her that are derivative of religious standards. So it's hypocritical to say that somebody is actually complaining from a religious point of view because those laws are derivative of their...
What laws? What laws are derivative from Christianity? Maintaining the streets? You know, maintaining law and order, keeping people from fucking running amok? That's the basic thing there, champ. Every society has had law. Any civil society that survived for very long has had law. Inside and outside the Judeo-Christian tradition. The Romans did a good job. The Greeks did a good job. They didn't have the Bible. How do you explain that, champ?
Religious standards. And I didn't even mention anything about...
And you said it, religious standards. You just said it right there, religious standards.
Today, and I actually argued from it. You know, I went online and looked up and gave you a whole bunch of reasons why over the years that it...
Yeah, what
society and opposed...
Where?
Just fucking ignore that. You know, don't bullshit me. Don't fuck with me. Because, I mean, you're just fucking making yourself look worse.
No, champ. You don't know anything about... Yeah.
When it comes to that.
Actually, how did the Chinese, the Koreans, the Aztecs, the whoever, they all had law without your little God biblical bullshit. As a matter of fact, what you call Christian law, you actually just co-opted the laws that were already there. So who's bullshitting who? Champ? And we're gonna get to the good part at the end. And I noticed that you put it at the end too, Bruce.
So don't any of you fucking atheists ever fucking sit around and talk. You're appealing to your...
Again, what does this have to do with atheism? We're talking about public policy regarding, well, in this regards, prostitution. This ain't got fuck all to do with atheism. Even if I was a Christian, I would still be having the same argument. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of Christians that agree with me. There's Christians that disagree with me. There's atheists that agree with me, and there's atheists that disagree with me. How do you explain that? So, screw you and you're like, oh, this is atheists versus Christians. That's bullshit. You know, just put that away, champ.
Your religious beliefs over certain laws, because I tell you what she's talking about...
Actually, no. No. My argument is your attitudes towards prostitution are rooted in religious belief, and that is a fact. And here I have to, oh God, I should have queued this up. Sorry people, but sorry, I'm taking a moment. And I'm gonna do this, and it's poopy. It's from the Victorian era. But it's very interesting. Whoever wrote this article did a very good job. And I backed it up. From the Wikipedia during the Victorian era, and there is a whole section here on prostitution. Beginning in the late 1840s, major news organizations, clergymen, and single women became increasingly concerned about prostitution, which became known as the Great Social Evil. And there's estimates of the numbers of prostitutes reported to the police and blah blah blah. And I'll go down a little bit here. While the Magdalene asylums had been, quote unquote, reforming prostitutes since the mid 18th centuries, the years between 1848 and 1870 saw a veritable explosion in the number of institutions working to reclaim these fallen women from the streets and retrain them for entry into respectable society, usually retraining them to be working as domestic servants. I'm going to stop right there, Stiggy. Do you see what I mean? That these women needed to be rescued, that they needed to be reformed, that they needed to be retrained into proper society. Nothing as much has changed. You know, and you're using the same talking points. And you're using the same attitudes from the Victorian era. I'll get back to some of this later. You know, and this is this weird fucking attitude that women using their own sexuality, their own bodies as a commodity, makes them fallen, etc., etc. We'll get back to more of this later.
Environment for prostitution, for it to happen and everything, you're going to be relying on all kinds of laws to be in place that were derivative of religious beliefs and religious standards.
Such as what, Stiggy? You're not saying it.
Thou shalt not steal. It's against the law to
See,
steal.
there we go. That's exactly where he said it. Oh, so prostitution is the same as theft. First of all, Stiggy, just about every society throughout history and in time and place has had proscriptions against theft. Why? Because when you have the concept of property in any society, now granted, if you're a hunter-gatherer society, that's not going to be much of a problem because you're not going to have much property. Even though, in that situation, stealing somebody's shit is probably going to be even more of a problem. But in regards to prostitution, not so much. So saying that prescriptions against theft is based on religion as opposed to prostitution is bullshit. No society is going to tolerate theft because no society is going to last long if they don't have a proscription against theft. But when it comes to prostitution, that's a different story. They're two very different fucking things. And you know that. Laws against theft have existed in every, have and do exist in every society. Obviously. But when it comes to prostitution, oh, not so much. Why isn't it the same? You don't need Judeo-Christian thought or philosophy or a worldview to make theft against the law. Ancient Chinese had laws against theft with very severe punishments, by the way. So did the Aztecs, so did the sub-Saharan Africa. Everybody's got laws against stealing. And it ain't got nothing to do with the Bible. But, as I read earlier, the attitudes against prostitution are very fucking specific. How do you explain that, Stiggy? So that's what I'm saying. Theft is universal. Prostitution is not. So it is about your religious hang-ups. It is about your attitude towards women and their sexuality and the control over their sexuality. Explain that. How come theft is universally a crime, but prostitution is not? I'll let you finish.
You're going to rely on that to keep your business going. You know, the laws against rape, harming other people. There's all kinds of laws that you're going to actually need in place for your business to take place and work. So you're both hypocritical on that point. You're just not seeing it.
There is no hypocrisy. No, you fucking moron. There's no hypocrisy here. No more than there's hypocrisy against saying, oh, I think gambling should be legal. Even though someone's using the Bible to argue against it, that we shouldn't have legal gambling. Or legal drinking, by the way. Let's bring up prohibition. I notice you avoided my arguments against prohibition, about prohibition completely. Okay? Arguments, like crimes against property or crimes against persons. Those are universal and are outside and exist outside of Judeo-Christian law. The talking points you're using arose out of the Victorian era and the Reform era, in that from like the mid 19th century up until the early 20th century. They're very new. So saying theft is just like prostitution, bullshit. Sorry, champ. You fail again. I'm not pro or anti, by the way. But saying that a victimless crime as compared to theft is the same thing. So how do you answer that? You know, the ancient Polynesians had crimes against theft. The Aztecs had crimes against theft. The ancient Egyptians had crimes against theft before Christianity existed. Oh, and those societies had different varying attitudes towards prostitution. How do you explain that? That's what I want to know.